June of 2016, Anastasia Hester was killed in her apartment by Angela McCraw Hester. Well, now Matthew Hester has pleaded guilty to hindering prosecution in his ex-wife's murder, along with the charge of solicitation to commit murder. The plea deal means he will get less than the mandatory minimum of 90 months, but could still face a murder charge with more evidence.
Oh, I'm trying to kill me.
911, how can I help you?
I'm trying to kill me.
What happened?
I'm moving from first everything.
Somebody tried. Where is this person at now?
I'm not here.
Do you need an ambulance?
Yes. No.
Do you know the name of the person that did this to you?
No.
Are you bleeding a lot? Okay. I'm getting lots of help heading in that direction, okay? Can you tell me what your name is?
The call lasted only 6 minutes, but Anastasia couldn't say anything about her attacker. Paramedics and police arrived at the apartment within minutes and rushed her to the hospital. When they got there, she was still responsive, but just barely. Her injuries were so severe and there were so many of them. Not long after she arrived at the emergency ward, she lost her fight. There was nothing they could do, and Anastasia was pronounced dead. Anastasia, known to everyone as Annie, had lived in Gresham all her life. She lost her father when she was a teenager and was very close to her mother and stepfather. She was described as reliable, assertive, hardworking, and naturally took on a leadership role not only with her siblings but in every job she had. One of her big passions was gaming, especially role-playing games, and she could often be found at the local gaming shop in Gresham or at local festivals and camps. One day at the local gaming shop, she started talking to Matthew Hester. This wasn't the first time she had met Matt. They had actually met all the way back in 1999. But Matt had married someone else and Annie had carried on with her life. Matt was now divorced and this was a totally chance encounter, and both of them saw it as a sign. They started dating and in 2008 they got married. 3 years later, they had a daughter named Alice. But things were not to work out for Matt and Annie. Just a year after Alice was born, their marriage started to fall apart after Matt had an affair, the same thing that had broken up Matt's first marriage. Annie tried to make things work, but the trust was broken and Matt was still not being honest with her. She knew things just weren't going to work out and she had to move on. After filing for divorce, things definitely got tough for Annie. She moved into a small one-bedroom apartment with Alice and Annie slept in the living room while Alice had the bedroom. She started working at an after-school program for kids and at a downtown call center. She worked her way up into management and took every hour of overtime she could get. Child support benefits were not consistent as Matt would frequently lose and change jobs. So Annie was doing everything she could to stay afloat. However, she and Matt were at the very least amicable. Even when Matt married for the third time, a woman named Angela, they still managed to make things work, often going out for dinners and play dates together with Angela's children. Annie was endlessly imaginative. Each year, she crafted unique Christmas ornaments for everyone. She cherished staging festive photo shoots with Alice to send out personalized Christmas cards to friends and family. On weekends when Matt had Alice, Annie utilized her precious free time by working part-time as a face painter, anything to keep herself occupied, stay creative, and earn a little extra for her daughter.
A murder suspect on the loose, and now people in southwest Gresham are on edge as officers and volunteers scour the Springwater Trail for any clues. It was a mom who was murdered at a Gresham apartment complex early this morning.
Detectives still on the scene right now after arriving there just about 3 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, we're going on 15, 16 hours in this investigation now, and we just got this picture just in the last few minutes of Anastasia Hester, 38 years old. That is the woman that Gresham police say was murdered overnight. Now, who killed her? Did she know that person, that suspect? Well, that's still a mystery as the investigation spreads from her apartment complex to the woods and the waters across the street. This popular path blocked off now by police tape and detectives and search and rescue volunteers for the second and third time, looking for anything that might lead them to whoever murdered a mother in the middle of the night at the East Park Apartments. There were no signs anyone forced their way into the woman's apartment. The mother of one daughter was stabbed several times, but still called 911. A detective rode with her to the hospital in case she could say who did it. She died before she could. Now, police aren't investigating only in the Springwater corridor, but the neighborhoods surrounding this area. They are urging residents to keep their doors and windows locked. As for that little girl, we are told she is normally here at the apartment complex. She was not here last night, and physically, we're told she is fine.
Back at the crime scene, officers were still piecing things together. Annie lived on the ground floor, and although the front door had been unlocked when they arrived, they believed the killer had broken in through Alice's bedroom window. The intruder had ripped off a window-mounted air conditioning unit and used a cinder block to gain entry. It didn't appear that anything of value had been taken, making a robbery seem unlikely. No one else had been in the apartment when they found Annie, but they were relieved to know that Alice had been staying with Matt and Angela, safe and unharmed. Blood spatter analysis showed that Annie had likely been asleep when the attack started. She had tried to escape out the front door but couldn't make it. She had been stabbed over 60 times in the chest and head, and the killer had even attempted to decapitate her. There was also a VXV carved into her shoulder, but no one had any idea what it could mean. Was it a sign, or was it there to throw the detectives off? 3 bloody knives were found on the carpet, a couple of them taken from Annie's own knife block in the kitchen, and one was a pocket knife. There were also some bloody shoe prints leading out of the front door. Maybe there were multiple killers. Anything and everything was an option right now. Talking to the neighbors, police were alarmed at just how many people had heard something. One person said they heard screaming and thudding sounds at around 11:15 p.m. More neighbors reported similar sounds after 1 a.m., shouting, door slamming, groaning, and what sounded like a vicious argument. One person admitted that the noise was so loud they turned up their TV to drown it out. Police said that, for so many people to have heard a commotion, yet the only person to call 911 was Annie as she lay dying was just so sad.
Police, unfortunately, they're no closer to solving this mystery than they were yesterday. They still don't know who killed Anastasia Hester. In fact, they say they need the public's help in finding out. We did talk to a family member who didn't want to go on camera, who said they feel it's a stranger because Anastasia, they said, did not have any enemies. Now, yesterday, Multnomah County search and rescue teams were out assisting with this investigation, combing through the dense brush near the Springwater Trail, looking for any clues to try to figure out just who might want to do this to this young mom.
I know Annie was a fighter, and I know whatever the circumstances were surrounding whatever happened, she went down with the fight, because that's just the way her spirit was. I know in my heart that it wasn't easy for this person to just come in.
Annie made the call at 3 a.m, so there was almost a 4-hour window to look at. Detectives said the fact her attack had gone on for that many hours was nothing short of prolonged torture. Naturally, investigators had some questions for her ex-husband Matt and his new wife Angela. They told him the news about Annie's death and asked him to come into the station.
So I guess, obviously I told you at the house that your ex-wife is deceased. But you didn't say how or anything like that, and we'll talk about that in a minute or two.
She said that she had been stabbed. Officers responded down there. She had been injured. She was transported to the hospital, and she was pronounced dead at the hospital. And at this point, we're investigating this as homicide. Ex-wife say anything about having any problems with anyone?
I don't talk about her personal life.
Matt stated that he and Angela had been home all evening playing games with Alice and Angela's 3 kids. Afterwards, they turned in for an early night.
So what were you and Angela doing last night?
Sleeping.
Okay. Do you know what time you went to bed?
I usually get into bed around 10 o'clock.
Okay. And was Angela with you, or was she staying up doing other things?
She was with me in bed.
He didn't seem particularly shaken by what had happened, but expressed sadness and concern for Alice. He insisted he had no reason to want his ex out of the picture. His priority was his daughter, and he would never do anything to harm her.
How are your feelings towards Anne?
I'm mostly indifferent. I want to deal with her as little as possible.
He admitted to cheating on Ali and causing the end of their relationship, but he said they had an agreement, an open relationship in fact. Matt said Annie had met other people as well, and was exploring polyamorous relationships, one of which was another couple she met at a pirate role-playing event.
I ended up cheating on her. I'm not very good at this relationship thing. I just know that the guy she's seeing was in a relationship, and Anne was in a relationship with both of them, the guy and the girl.
So Anne was dating both the female and the male?
Correct.
He mentioned there could be numerous people worth talking to, but he didn't know any specifics. They had kept their personal lives very separate. The couple he referred to were tracked down, but they had nothing to do with Annie's murder. Authorities noted that Matt appeared to be in poor health, using a stick to walk. Given the crime scene and the prolonged nature of the attack, they doubted he could have physically carried it out. Angela was also questioned, but her story matched Matt's. They went to bed early, stayed on their phones for a bit, then fell asleep. Angela claimed that if Matt had left the bed for any reason, she would have woken up immediately, as she was a light sleeper.
I was on the verge of falling asleep to some Criminal Minds.
Any chance that Matthew could have gone anywhere sometime during the night?
Oh God, every time he moves he wakes me up, so it's not a possibility. And I sleep like literally right up against him in his arms.
He mentioned there could be numerous people worth talking to, but he didn't know any specifics. They had kept their personal lives very separate. The couple he referred to were tracked down, but they had nothing to do with Annie's murder. Authorities noted that Matt appeared to be in poor health, using a stick to walk. Given the crime scene and the prolonged nature of the attack, they doubted he could have physically carried it out. Angela was also questioned, but her story matched Matt's. They went to bed early, stayed on their phones for a bit, then fell asleep. Angela claimed that if Matt had left the bed for any reason, she would have woken up immediately, as she was a light sleeper.
We want to let the public know that this person is still at large.
And the stabbing happened right across the street from the notorious Springwater Trail. Police bringing in search and rescue teams and a helicopter as the manhunt continues.
As long as it takes. I don't have an answer on how long we're going to be out there. If there's some good evidence or clues out there that we find, we'll switch throughout the night. If we need daylight, we'll hold it over the evening and then work tomorrow morning.
So far, police leads are thin. Meanwhile, neighbors who live in this area say being so close to the Springwater corridor has brought many transient wanderers into their community.
They bring drugs with them, and like, if I have my kids around here, you never know what type of sicko is out there, because a lot of homeless people, they have mental health problems. So
Major Crimes is investigating. Anyone with information is urged to call police immediately.
The more they delved into Martin, Angela, and their relationship with Annie, the less their claims of being amicable made sense. Things had been fine until Angela moved in with Matt. Initially, she just wanted to rent a room for herself and her kids, but within a month, they were in a relationship. Angela didn't want Matt and Annie to communicate, and Matt wanted their daughter Alice to be at their house all the time. Just a month before Annie's murder, a judge awarded Annie full custody of Alice. The judge also ordered Matt to pay over $13,000 in backdated child support payments and nearly $30,000 in legal fees. Neither Matt nor Angela were working, so how did they intend to pay this money? Matt spent most days at home writing fantasy stories, creating his own role-playing games and characters, and uploading content to his YouTube channel with Angela.
Today is Monday, August 22nd, 2016, and this is my weekly writing video blog. The project I'm most excited about actually just started today, and that's sharing the races for Enteal Chaos Prophecies. That's the MMORPG that I'm helping to develop. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and I'll make sure that I get back to you.
Cloud 2 or just the HyperX?
Which one, dear? My one that silenced them I was trying to do, but ended up put in stasis.
Damn it, Thrall!
When detectives pressed further about the money he owed Annie, Matt explained that because their children had various disabilities and mental health issues, they didn't need to work as they received numerous benefits and payouts. Angela's ex-husband, Alan, revealed that Angela's obsession with diagnosing their children and seeking medication and money was a major reason for their split. He said she was convinced the kids needed numerous prescriptions, which he strongly opposed, believing the medications could harm rather than help them. Our divorce came down to me wanting to ensure my kids weren't being poisoned with unnecessary drugs, Alan said. Angela had also fixated on Matt and Annie's daughter, convinced that Alice had bipolar disorder, a claim Annie vehemently denied. Annie began to worry that they were using Alice to obtain more benefits. A licensed professional agreed, stating that it was dangerous to label a child and interpret normal developmental behaviors as pathological. The father had not considered any possibility for Alice's behavior other than blaming the mother. The professional added that psychologists do not have formal diagnostic standards for bipolar disorder in children younger than 6. Angela even called Child Protective Services on Annie, accusing her of neglect. Annie was devastated, though she had no idea who had made the call as it remained anonymous. She reached such a low point, feeling drained and emotionally exhausted, not knowing where to turn. She emailed a friend saying, "I just cannot comprehend what the fuck I did to deserve this level of shit in my life." The neglect claim was baseless and went nowhere, with the case being closed almost immediately. The police now had multiple motives for Matt and Angela wanting Annie dead: custody, jealousy, and money. But they still had no physical evidence. The lead investigator, Detective Turnage, asked Matt and Angela to join them for another interview. Matt took his shirt off to show them. He had no marks on his body at all, which they would absolutely be expecting to find, given how brutal and prolonged this attack against Danny was, and his shoe size was not even close to the shoe prints on the floor.
I mean, obviously, we got to consider all possibilities here, and I'm sure you've seen TV. When we have situations like this, you know, everybody points to the ex-husband did it.
I want to help you guys, because
I want to.
Sorry. The thing I'm worried about is my daughter.
I hear you. If you had anything to do with Anne's death, I need to know about it right now.
I did not. I would never do anything that would endanger my child.
Okay. Is there any reason why I find your DNA involved in that murder scene?
No.
But despite what he said about his ailing health, despite having no marks and his denials, Turnage knew he had to have some involvement in this.
I need to let you know that my investigation clearly shows that you're responsible for Anne's death and you're involved in it intimately. There's
you would have charged me. So
no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
If you thought I did, you would charge me.
Nope, not necessarily.
Nothing to do with her death.
Turnage said he was looking at a very arrogant and very bad actor. Angela sat with her head down for most of her interview, saying she wasn't feeling well.
How did it make you feel when you heard about her being killed?
Shocked. Non-believing. Extremely sad because Alice had lost her mom.
She did, however, volunteer some new information. She confessed that around 3 a.m. on that fateful night, she had indeed been awake, a different story from the one she had told before. She mentioned letting the dogs out and then suddenly becoming violently ill for no apparent reason. Matt had to help her change and shower, a detail she had previously omitted. This revelation cast doubt on her earlier alibi and left the detectives even more intrigued about what had really happened that night.
Did you guys sleep well? What happened? Did you get through the night, or?
For the most part, we slept just fine until my dog started whining.
Do you remember, like, looking at a clock? Or?
I half opened my eye to look at the clock slightly and see that it was around 3.
Did you actually end up having to get out of bed to let him out? Or?
Yeah, I got up, walked downstairs, put their leashes on, took them potty, came back upstairs, put them in their kennels.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to go potty and ended up puking and myself at the same time.
Oh, that's horrible. I'm sorry.
I called Matt to help me, and he came and helped me.
But it still wasn't enough, and once again, they had to let the pair go home. This time, however, they placed both of them under surveillance. The surveillance footage revealed Matt walking around without his cane, lifting heavy items from the shops and doing gardening, quite the contrast to the man who appeared to struggle at the police station. Their neighbor's camera showed that someone had left the couple's house before 10 p.m., driving in the direction of Annie's apartment. Yet their roommate Kaina maintained she genuinely believed they hadn't left that night and hadn't heard anything. Police found this hard to believe and suspected she might be covering for her friends. Regardless, they had just caught Angela and Matt in a significant lie.
It's been 1 year since the brutal murder of a Gresham mother, and whoever killed her is still out there. Now there's a reward for information about who killed her.
It's been a long, devastating year for the family of Anastasia Hester.
I really thought we'd have something before now. I mean, Anne's murder was brutal. I would hate another mother to have to do what we've had to do. I don't have the words for how bad it is.
A year later, detectives tell me the case is far from cold, but remains unsolved.
Do you think it's a stranger or somebody she knows?
We're not sure. We haven't ruled out either at this point.
She was a good person. She really was. I don't understand how anybody would want to do this to her. They took somebody out of this world that deserved to be here. She had a little girl that needed her to raise her. I don't know how the hell they could live with themselves.
The family is asking anyone with information about Anne's murder to come forward to police.
Whoever did this has to be found. Has to be.
It had now been a year since Annie was killed, and Matt and Angela had moved almost 700 miles away, so getting cooperation from them was now even more difficult than it had been before.
But the investigating team had not slowed down. It was just a waiting game. While all the testing from inside her apartment was happening, finally DNA testing on the knives had been completed, as well as Annie's blood. The DNA was also a match to Angela.
Detectives say they've arrested the woman behind a brutal murder tonight. This woman behind bars across state lines. It was back in June of last year when police arrived to a bloody crime scene to find 36-year-old Anastasia Hester stabbed to death in her Gresham apartment. Now, the wife of her ex-husband is in jail in Idaho. Our Cole Miller joins us live with the latest on this investigation and what comes next. Cole?
Well, Jeff, the arrest happened just this afternoon in Pocatello, Idaho. Police say Angela McCraw Hester, the person you see right here, carried out that violent murder and now begins the legal process of getting her back to Oregon to face both a judge and a jury.
No! In the car. I have kids. They're going to be coming home. Tell me why you're arresting me. Why am I being arrested, you stupid f***? I have kids and dogs.
In October 2017, Angela McCrory Hester was arrested and charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder and first-degree burglary.
You are under arrest for Anastasia's murder.
So you're saying that I killed her?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like a lawyer if that's the case.
Okay. All right.
Because I didn't. I was at home.
You are under arrest for suspected murder. So you're saying that I killed her? Yes, if that's the case, I want a lawyer. Why? Because I didn't kill anyone. I was at home. One charge states that she intentionally caused Annie's death. Another charge says her death was the result of intentional torture. These charges could lead to the death penalty if found guilty. Despite all this and all the evidence against her, she still insisted on her innocence and pleaded not guilty to all charges. When they interviewed Matt Turner, she was still heading up the case was far more blunt, even showing him Annie's autopsy photos, hoping to force him into telling the truth about something.
I just want to get done so I can get home to the kids. Here's the deal, okay? Our investigation clearly shows that Angela committed the murder against Anastasia. We're not here to discuss if it happened. I don't care what you think. In fact, you've been under surveillance for the last 2 weeks by the U.S. Marshals. So we've got you walking across the parking lot at Costco, picking up soda boxes and water bottles, whatever you were doing. You're not limping. You're not walking with a cane. I'm not buying the fibromyalgia. I'm not buying it, okay? That's her. She's tough as and they tried to decapitate her. Come all the way through her jaw.
Matt then admitted to police that Angela came home that early morning, covered in blood.
There's something in this. I don't have a choice but to accept what she did. Okay. Like, I just woke up, my wife's panicking, all I can think of, okay, whatever you need. So I'm going to go upstairs, I can help her get in the shower. She's leaving. What are you asking her? What is she saying? She didn't say anything. She was just shaking. Did you ask her what happened to her? Why did she leave? No, I was just getting her calmed down.
But he claimed he had no idea what had happened. He also said that he and Angela had had many conversations about killing Annie, but they had never made a plan to actually follow through. He then pointed the finger at Angela's ex-husband, Alan, saying he believed Alan might have been involved. Detectives brought Alan in for a proper interrogation, and interrogation, Alan says, gave him PTSD. Detective Turnish said he didn't believe what Alan was saying, but admitted he also didn't know what the truth actually was. Whatever Alan's involvement was in Annie's case, if there was any involvement at all, remains unknown, but he has never been arrested or charged with anything.
Angela McCraw Hester made her first court appearance this morning.
We got our hands on the court documents in this case. They paint a gruesome picture of what Angela McCraw Hester is accused of doing, torturing and murdering her husband's ex-wife. And we got our first look at the suspect, Angela, in Multnomah County Court earlier today. It was very brief arraignment. It wasn't until October of this year that Angela was arrested, and she waived her right to an extradition hearing. She was arrested in Idaho, waived that right to an extradition, telling officials, quote, "I just want to get this over with." Well, her husband, Matthew Hester, was also arrested in October, charged with resisting arrest and obstruction of justice, though authorities say he is not a suspect in the Gresham homicide.
After admitting to helping clean up the blood, Matt Hester was also charged, but only with a misdemeanor, resisting and obstructing charges, which would soon be dropped. Matt returned home and carried on as if nothing had happened, while Angela sat waiting in jail. The bloody shoe print in Annie's apartment still tormented investigators. They had to find this shoe. They looked at Matt and Angela's phone data from the night of the incident and the following days. Just 3 days after Annie was killed, Angela used Google Maps to search for a location. She drove from her house, 35 miles away, to Mount Hood National Forest. On a bitterly cold and snowy day, Detective Turnage and his team arrived at the forest. Unbelievably, just a few yards from the road, they found a brown boot wedged next to a fallen tree. They traced the boot back to a store, revealing that it had been purchased by Angela and was linked directly to her store account. The tread marks matched the shoe print at the scene, and the size also matched Angela's. Knowing where the boots were found, one of the divers analyzed the water patterns and confidently stated that if anything had been dumped, she would find it. And she did. A plastic bag was caught under the water, containing clothes belonging to Angela. This was an impressive effort from everyone, driven by a relentless determination to leave no stone unturned. Their case against Angela had just become much stronger. Her legal team could argue that she might have been at Annie's apartment at some point, maybe helping Matt pick up Alice or using the knives to prep food or put them away. But the bloody boots, linked to a Google Maps and store account, were a huge piece of evidence. The detectives also learned that Annie had taken out a $100,000 life insurance policy, and they spoke to her insurer, who confirmed that her parents were listed as the beneficiaries. After she was killed, a call was made about the policy, but it wasn't from her grieving family. It was from her ex-husband, Matt. He bluntly asked if he or Alice were eligible for anything, and after being told they couldn't discuss it with him, he quickly hung up. Finally, in 2019, Matt Hester was charged with 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, 1 count of solicitation to commit murder, and 1 count of hindering prosecution.
You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and solicitation to commit murder, the murder of Anastasia Hester. Signature on that line, please, if you choose to waive your rights.
No, I would like a lawyer.
He also pleaded not guilty.
Sir, you're here on an extradition warrant out of the state of Oregon. Sir, you have a right to an attorney in this matter. If you can't afford one will be provided for you, or you can represent yourself. Would you like an attorney to assist you today, sir?
Yes, please.
And are you currently employed?
No.
A year later, in November 2020, knowing that everything was about to come up at trial, Angela changed her mind, even though a change in legislation meant the death penalty was no longer an option. In her case, she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder.
New tonight, Angela McCraw Hester will spend the rest of her life in prison for killing her husband's ex-wife, Anastasia Hester.
Was later sentenced to life in prison, but can apply for parole after 25 years. After the prosecution dropped 2 charges of conspiracy to commit murder against Matt, he, like Angela, would change his mind.
June of 2016, Anastasia Hester was killed in her apartment by Angela McCraw Hester. Well, now Matthew Hester has pleaded guilty to hindering prosecution in his ex-wife's murder, along with the charge of solicitation to commit murder. The plea deal means he will get less than the mandatory minimum of 90 months, but could still face a murder charge with more evidence.
In August 2021, Matthew finally pleaded guilty. He admitted to soliciting Aaron McCroy to commit murder and hindering prosecution. He was sentenced to less than 5 years in prison, just 56 months. It was a bold decision by the prosecution, but they said that if they had any chance of one day charging him with conspiracy to commit murder, they had to build that part of the case up much more. An accused person cannot be tried twice for the same offense, known as double jeopardy, and if he were found not guilty at trial, no matter how strong their case became afterward, they could not charge him again. They couldn't take that risk. He is still within their sights, and everything remains open. The next person could be Angela's ex-husband, Aaron, as they continue to investigate any involvement he may or may not have had. Angela and Matt's divorce happened behind bars, and it appears they've had no contact since. Whenever visitors come to see Angela in jail and ask about the case, she simply says, "That's between me and God." She hasn't spoken a word about Annie since her arrest. Meanwhile, Angela's children were placed in foster care, and Matt and Annie's daughter, Alice, was adopted by Annie's mother. Despite everything, Annie always tried to make the best of a difficult situation. She worked tirelessly for Alice, and her boss described her as incredibly inspiring. Annie could juggle any challenge and handle it all with a smile. Her work ethic was unmatched, but it was her unwavering positivity in the face of such hardship, always putting others first, that truly made her stand out. Even in her final moments, she remained strong and determined to keep fighting.